Hello, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History, where today we're going to be talking about Dr. Elias Ghanem, one of Elvis's doctors. But before we get there, we've got to take a trip back to our last episode, because I've got a correction to make. In the last episode of The Mystery of August 16th, 1977, I showed a picture, and I said that picture was Bitsy Mott. Let's take a look at that picture again. So this is Elvis with a gentleman sitting next to him in a car, and I identified this gentleman as Bitsy Mott during the last broadcast, but it turns out that I was incorrect, took some of my information from the internet, and it wasn't right. So one of our viewers, Caroline, she let me know that this is not Bitsy Mott. It's a man named Ken Moore, who was Elvis's bodyguard from 1956 to 1960. And to tell the truth, this name rings no bells with me. But it is true that this man is Ken Moore, and he was Elvis's bodyguard from 1956 to 1960. Now, you guys know how bad I am with names. So it's possible I've read his name in a book or in an article somewhere, but I absolutely do not remember it. So this was new information to me about the bodyguard. So I did a little bit of research, and I've just barely scratched the surface on Ken, so we're going to have to get a lot deeper into him. But here's another picture, and you can see Elvis with his tongue out, and Ken's over at the right. Just a profile picture, but you can see he's about Elvis's height, so he'd been about 6 feet tall, and he looks like a pretty big guy. And he was in charge of security, or at least part of the security team. So he was in charge of keeping Elvis safe. Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for coming. Definitely appreciate seeing you here. Here's another picture, and this time we get a full face. First time we've seen it, of Ken. And in this picture, you can also see cousin Gene Smith. He's over at the left-hand side. Looks like he's got a little bit of a mustache going on. And then you see Elvis in the middle. Not sure who the child is, an Elvis fan. Starting him young. And then over at the right side, we've got Ken. Keeping watch. His eyes are right on that photographer. Probably wondering if that photographer's getting ready to do something. They might have looked a little squirrely. Now here is a picture of Ken on the left, and this is in 1960, after Elvis has returned from the Army, and this is, I believe, at Graceland. I think that's Graceland's wall right there. I guess it could have been from before he got back from the Army, but I'm thinking this is probably around April. In fact, I might actually have the actual date. Hang on just a second for me. Yes, this is March 7th, 1960. So this is slightly before Elvis has returned. But I still do think this is Graceland, or maybe it's one of their houses or something. But this is Ken. In the middle is Tom Diskin, and he's the Colonel's right-hand man. If you have ever read anything about the Colonel, you know about Tom. Tom was a diplomat. Tom had the ability to work between Elvis and the Colonel, to smooth things, to also do that with the Memphis Mafia, to do that with all of the various representatives they worked with from hotels and venues and even restaurants, anywhere that Elvis would end up showing up. Tom had a wonderful way of really getting to know a person and working things out for Elvis. And over at the far side, on the left or on the right, so we've gone from the left, which was Ken, we got Tom in the middle, and over on the right, that really is Bitsy Mott. That is a true picture of Bitsy. So when I said in the other video that Age must have done something because I really didn't recognize him as Bitsy, this is why I was totally confused. And this teaches you to trust the internet, right? But Ken, Tom Diskin, and Bitsy Mott here in this photograph. Hi, Angel. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And you're just in time to see the correction and see that we've identified who the guy was in the picture that I showed last episode, and that it was another bodyguard, a little known bodyguard of Elvis. And you can see him right here in this picture. So once again, this is Ken or Kenneth Moore, Tom Diskin, Bitsy Mott. Now, this is one of the last pictures that's ever taken of Ken, because he doesn't live much longer. He passes away in 1960, and that's why we don't hear his story moving forward with the Elvis story. He's gone. Gone as of 1960. So this is our little moment to remember him here, and then I'll probably do a much deeper dive into him, because I didn't know about him at all. Oh my goodness, I have been muted, Angel. Thank you so much. I'm so terrible with this mute button. Thank you for letting me know. So I was trying to tell some history of Ken here. So let me tell it so that everybody can hear it. What we see on the screen is Ken Moore, Tom Diskin, and Bitsy Mott. And in early 1956, when the Colonel takes over Elvis's management, he brings in Bitsy Mott, who is his brother-in-law, to take over security. And they go and they do a show in October, sometime before October of 1956. And it's at the Northside Coliseum in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And the guy who's running the concessions is the father-in-law of Kenneth Moore. So Ken's working the concessions for his father-in-law at this show. And I believe that's where they all meet. And then something happens, and the father-in-law, he sues the colonel for breach of contract. And then somehow they come to some conclusion and agreement. And shortly after that's all wrapped up, Ken is then working for the colonel and for Elvis, providing security. So I don't know if the father-in-law felt like this was a good opportunity to move his son-in-law to a new occupation, or whether the son-in-law said, I'd rather work for the colonel than my own father-in-law, or maybe there was more opportunity there, or maybe he just wanted to be near Elvis. I have no idea. What we do know is that he started working for Elvis at that point, and he worked for him until Elvis left for the army. And when Elvis returned, Ken returned to take up security again, and then he passed away later that year. So I thought this would be just a nice little moment for us to remember Ken. And now we can move on. And what we're going to see next is, of course, we're following our fictional Elvis fan, Joyce, as she tries to solve this mystery of August 16th, 1977. And they're all at her house. It's, the 18th. They're waiting for the funeral to happen. They're getting a hold of papers from the day before. They're getting a hold of maybe early bootleg VCR tapes to watch of news broadcasts and things like that. And they're also getting pictures from the Elvis fan network from fans all around the world that are bringing together what pieces of evidence they have to try to solve the mystery. And of course, they don't know what pieces will help to solve it. So they're contributing everything that they've got. And here we're going to see a new piece that we haven't seen before. It's a picture that they showed up Joyce, and it's of this blue scarf. And this blue scarf has sweat stains on it. And this blue scarf was given at a concert in 1977 to Ginger Alden. Now, the fans at this time, they must have got a picture of it from maybe one of Ginger's family members, or maybe they're friends with her sister, or maybe Ginger showed it to him herself. Don't really know how it showed up in the record at this point in the archive, but we do know that later on it'll be on the auction circuit, and that's how I know about it. But this is an actual blue scarf that was worn by Elvis that he sweated into while he was performing, and that he gave to his girlfriend and fiance, Ginger Alden. So I thought you guys might have fun taking a look at that. So then we've got a little bit of video to take a look at. Let me pull that up. Let's see. Here we go. And we start this to play. So you guys should be able to hear this, so if you can, let me know. I always appreciate that. Hello, Emma. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you. Audio on this is kind of bad, but this is people, I believe, on the 17th. And they were filing to Graceland to try to get in. Well, let me see what I can do here. think it's just that part. No, it doesn't want to play this for some reason with the audio correctly. So I'll take a look at this in the background and figure out how to fix this so that we can see it. It seemed to be working earlier, but once you actually get into the broadcast, there's always these technical glitches. So thank you for letting me know you can hear it, Terry, but it's got something going on with the audio, so I think I'll probably have to re-record it in some manner and try it again. But that's okay, because I've got plenty of other stuff for us to look at. So these were our pictures of Ken Moore and the scarf. And we're going to take a look at this article here in the Herald Examiner. And it says that Elvis's heart fails, rock star dies in Memphis hospital at 42. And this was their lead story. And it really catches us up to where it's a very good summary of where the media is at this moment. We're a little bit farther and deeper in, but this is what almost every fan except maybe Joyce and her crew actually believe, because this is what's most publicized in the media right at this moment. And it's that Elvis Presley, the Mississippi boy whose rock and roll guitar and gyrating hips changed American music styles, died Tuesday afternoon of heart failure. He was 42. Dr. Jerry Francisco, medical examiner for Shelby County, said the cause of death was cardiac arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat. He said, quote, "That's just another name for a heart attack." Francisco said the 3-hour autopsy uncovered no sign of any other diseases and that there was no sign of any drug abuse. So this story is coming out of Memphis, Tennessee from the Associated Press, and it's being reprinted here in the Los Angeles Herald Examiner. So this is what Los Angeles is seeing, even though we've seen some stories come out of Los Angeles that were written by people out of Los Angeles that were copying people out of Chicago that they sent to people in London that weren't anywhere close to what this is saying. But of course, those stories were completely wrong. Back into this one. Presley was declared passed away at 3:30 p.m. at Baptist Hospital, where he had been taken by a fire department ambulance after being found unconscious at his Graceland mansion. Dr. George Nicopolis, Presley's personal physician, said Presley was last seen alive shortly after 9 a.m. Nicopolis said Presley had been taking a number of appetite depressants, but he said they did not contribute to his death. Gossip reporter Ronna Barrett had discussed on ABC television Tuesday morning a book in which former bodyguards alleged that Presley had been using drugs. Presley's unconscious form was discovered at his white-columned mansion by Joe Esposito, his road manager. A girlfriend, Ginger Alden, 20, was at the mansion, Nicopolis said. A Baptist hospital spokesman said Esposito began resuscitation efforts and called for Nicopolis and an ambulance. Dr. Elias Ghanem, friend of the Presley family, said in Las Vegas that he had talked with Presley's father, Vernon, and that the elder Presley was taking his son's death very badly. Presley, who had rarely emerged from his mansion grounds in recent years except performances, had been hospitalized in Baptist in April when he cut short a tour in Louisiana and returned to Memphis, and at that time he was said to be suffering from exhaustion and intestinal flu. And in the past 2 years, he had also been hospitalized for eye problems and what doctors described as a twisted colon. So this is a great wrap up of exactly what we've been through, with a whole bunch of different news stories all kind of combined together. So if you're new to the channel, if this is your first time here, first episode of the mystery of August 16th, 1977, this is what the world believes at this moment. We have a little bit better knowledge. Our friend Joyce has come across some other things, and that's what you see in the other videos. And I see we got a new person here, Live Free or Die. This guy killed Elvis. Actually, Elvis killed himself. This guy helped. And I believe you're talking about Dr. Ghanem. And yes, Dr. Ghanem was certainly a doctor who contributed to the ill health of Elvis. I don't believe he was helping him be healthy. Terry does say that's very harsh, don't you think? It's definitely blunt. It's very blunt. But I don't believe that Ghanem was had Elvis's best interest at heart myself. But everybody is free to their own opinion here. So feel free to put it into the comments. We're about to see a couple of other things that Ghanem says. So and if you've never seen Ghanem, he is the guy that is in the main picture that I'm showing. So let's take a look at that. That's Dr. Ghanem. He was in Las Vegas. So when Elvis was in residency at Las Vegas, he was the doctor that he serviced the Hilton or the International, as well as other hotels. So when celebrities would get sick, they wouldn't, their doctor wouldn't be around because they all live in different places. They would call the hotel doctor, who in this case would be Dr. Ghanem. And so he knew a lot of celebrities, and he really liked it. And he had a house that was nearby, and he actually put an extra room into his house in order to treat Elvis. Somewhat like Eddie Fadal, years earlier, had built a room onto his house. But in this case, he did some treatments that Dr. Nick was very, very unhappy with when he found out, and said hurt Elvis tremendously. So it comes down to who you believe, Ghanem or Dr. Nick. Now, what we've already seen in this series is that we've seen a bunch of pill bottles, and they were all prescribed by Dr. Nick, but they were all collected by this guy, Dr. Ghanem. Like, somehow Elvis had brought these with him and left them at the house, and Dr. Ghanem had not thrown them away. He had kept those. So he knew what prescriptions Elvis was taking from Dr. Nick, but Dr. Nick did not have any knowledge, according to Dr. Nick, of anything Dr. Ghanem was doing until Elvis came to him with extreme issues. And Terry's saying, sorry, I don't like saying that Elvis killed him. So yeah, and I don't like that either, and I wouldn't take that, but I don't think that's what Live Free or Die meant. I think he's talking about Dr. Ghanem's bad treatment of Elvis. That he's read some of these things that Dr. Ghanem has done. And like all of us, it's come here with different bits and pieces of the story, and it's searching for the truth. I'm hoping, like all of us. So Live Free or Die, feel free to comment, let us know what you're thinking. I do welcome all opinions here, and I recognize that there's a lot of stories out there, and we're trying to put them all right here. So let me get back to these pictures that we were showing. I think there's a setting on here so I don't have to go through these every time, but I got to figure it out here. So this is what we just looked at. And we're going to look at some more articles in this in future videos. And those will be like things that people in the Los Angeles area, fans, actually said. So that'll be a fun, a more fun episode where, of course, they're very sad, but they have some very sweet and wonderful memories about Elvis. Now, this is a guitar pick, as you can see, and it says EP, which is Elvis Presley, and EPE, Elvis Presley Enterprises, has verified that this pic was used in a 1977 concert, although in the information I saw, it didn't identify which concert. So don't quite know which concert, but I do know it was used according to EPE, and I don't know if we got a better source than that, in a 1977 concert, and it was one of Elvis Presley's personal guitar picks. So it doesn't really have any provenance other than that. It was sold at auction at some point. Some private collector owns it. I don't know who, but I don't think it was connected to any of the Elvis people or Inner Circle or any names that we know, other than Elvis himself. Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And let's take a look here. So this is Variety. And it is a magazine that is printed for the industry. So, like, it's a big deal in the industry. So what it says, this is what all the actors and actresses and stuff like that would have read, because all of them read Variety all the time. They were very, very into this. I need to pull up another file here, so hold on just a second for me, guys. For some reason I did not have this one up and ready to run. Here we go. Almost, guys. Just one more second. Okay. And this just brings me up a readable format of this article. So I can read little sections out of it for you. Because obviously, if you look at it on the screen, it's completely unreadable. So in this, it's saying that Elvis was found about 2:30 p.m. by Joe Esposito, who went to wake him up. So we know, and that was in the previous article that we just looked at, that this isn't quite true. And so Variety's running a little bit behind on this. But nobody's quite got to the point that they realize that Ginger Alden is the one who found him. Hi, Nancy. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you being here. And then it's saying that Vernon Presley and other relatives were present in the house and summoned an ambulance, which isn't quite true. Vernon wasn't in the house. There were other relatives there, like Minnie Mae and Delta, but the singer never regained consciousness. An hour later, his personal physician, Dr. George Nicopolis, abandoned efforts to revive him at Baptist Memorial Hospital. So that would be 3:30, which aligns with everything that we've seen. So they're pulling all of this information from all of the sources that we've seen. And Nicopolis said heart attack was possible cause of death, but an autopsy was in progress later in the day. And Presley was to appear in Portland, Maine the following day, and his longtime manager, Tom Parker, was there when Elvis passed away. So Tom, Colonel Parker, was in Portland, Maine. And he also had a sold-out concert for August the 27th in Memphis. And I believe all of the dates on the tour were already sold out, or very, very close to it. And then it goes into a bunch of background on him, but I believe it's got a thing on Ghanem here. So let me scroll down. Well, it's got a big section. So this is a multi-page article. They really went into a lot of depth with this, and they give a lot of background on his life, and it's not correct, but it is very in line with what was thought at the time. I'm not really going to bother to read it out because it's all just incorrect. So it's the myth more than the truth, but it was what was believed about Elvis at the time. But then they get to this reclusive life part, and you know, the previous parts are really the myth that has been pushed out by Elvis and Colonel Parker, and it's what they relate to the press. It's what gets published in the one decent book about Elvis so far, which was Jerry Hopkins. It's the one that it gets referred to in different magazine articles. But his current life is really the fodder of the tabloids, right? It's more open to discussion amongst the journalists because they have an opportunity to attack him and make fancy headlines and therefore sell more papers. And Angel's asking, Matt, did Colonel ever make a statement? I know Vernon did. So we did, in a previous episode, have a statement from the Colonel, but it was in that London newspaper where half of the things they said were true and half of them were outright lies. So we have not seen those statements repeated anywhere, which indicates that they weren't true quotes from the Colonel. But we don't know that yet. But I personally don't think that sounded like the Colonel to me, but so I would love to see those again, verified by somebody, but I have not seen that come up yet. We also know that in a previous episode, I gave a link to a Roy Turner interview, and Roy Turner is the guy who runs the birthplace, and he made a statement in that it was a 2022 interview that the Colonel had set up a stand outside Graceland during I don't know if it was the funeral or the procession to see the body or what, but he had set up the stand and sold souvenirs. Now, we saw the pictures and stuff, and we haven't seen this, and we haven't seen it reported in any contemporary news sources. But Roy is the kind of guy that he's seen this somewhere, and it was somewhere that he gave credibility to. So we've got to find the same source and determine whether it has that credibility. But it's possible, according to Roy, that the Colonel did this, and I was not aware of that. And it would, that is a game changer, right? If he's out there selling merchandise. Well, yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know about that one. So, good question. To get back to this one, well, let's read what they say about the reclusive life, because I think that this is, well, it's definitely what every celebrity thinks about him, or most of them, because this is their Bible. They read this religiously, this variety, and it's what they're pulling this from other sources, which are on a national level. So this is what most of America kind of thinks. And it's that Presley was a legendary character as well as a legendary performer, forced by his fame to live a reclusive life at his Memphis Graceland manse. His rare forays into public would always cause commotion. A favorite Presley move, combining a goodwill gesture with a kind of prank, would be to purchase new Cadillacs for total strangers. Something he did on many occasions, as recently as this year. He would also gift his staff and girlfriends extensively and expensively. I'm not really sure what the prank is that they're referring to. If he gave me a new Cadillac, I wouldn't feel like there was any prank involved in any way. And then, never forgetting his down-home roots and solidly religious upbringing, Presley gave extensively to charities. In 1961, he raised $51,000 for various Memphis funds. In 1965, he gave $1 million to the Motion Picture and TV Fund. In 1968, one of his several gold Cadillacs was exhibited in Australia, raising $128,000 for local charities. And that's a story in and of itself. Elvis had this gold Cadillac. I'm sure you guys have all heard about it. The Colonel sent it on tour, and it actually went to Australia. And there's a guy who went with Elvis. He went with the Cadillac. He worked for the Colonel. He wrote a book called Up and Down with Elvis Presley. And I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. And the book's not on the bookshelf that I'm looking at, but that was the book, Up and Down with Elvis Presley. So and that guy worked marketing Elvis, and he's a very little known guy, so it's kind of an interesting book. And then this also says that Presley recorded a number of religious-oriented albums, considered to be among his very finest efforts. And that in recent years, Presley's career boomed while his personal health fared less well. He became noticeably obese, up as much as 70 pounds from his 175-pound fighting weight. So that would put him about 245 pounds, is what they're saying. Not really sure where they got that information. Maybe it's on the autopsy. Haven't seen it. We saw one other reference to his weight, but it was in that London article. So we don't know that it was real. And Emma's saying that she's read that book and she's got it here. And it gives you just a slightly different view of Elvis from somebody who did work with him, but wasn't one of the main names, not one of the ones you hear all the time. And this article goes on to say that associates point to his steady diet of junk food, especially soft drinks, jelly donuts, and banana splits. So I know that he drank Pepsi, although I also know that he preferred sparkling water. I know that he stopped one time for jelly donuts, but I don't know how often he ate jelly donuts. As far as I know, they only appear in that one story. I know he did a donut commercial once early on in his career, but it wasn't specifically jelly donuts, and I don't remember hearing any other stories about donuts, truthfully. And banana splits, I don't remember ever hearing any stories about banana splits, peanut butter and banana sandwiches. And I know that there's a whole bunch of pictures of Elvis holding bananas and walking out of hotels, but I don't know about any banana split connection. So if anybody knows the jelly donut or the banana split connection, let us know. We all know that Elvis loved Pepsi. And then it's also saying that in Baltimore on May 29th, Presley walked off the stage after 20 minutes, later pleading a twisted ankle, and that concert grossed $180,000 because the center had expanded its seating to 12,900 people. So that gives you an idea of at least what the paper believes that Elvis is bringing in per concert, which was $180,000. Now, obviously, he's not getting $180,000. That's being split up amongst everybody, the venue owners and all this. So I'm not sure what Elvis's split from that would be from the night, but could potentially be pretty large. And then it says, though Presley was under continuous medical treatment, often entering Memphis hospital for fatigue and once for eye surgery, seriousness of his ailment wasn't apparent to even his closest associates. Yeah, and that was the end of that article. Now, I know I had another article here that had Ghanem in it, so let me see. Yeah, we were partially through in the last episode this article with Ghanem, and we hadn't actually got to what he said. So here we go. The Las Vegas article is emphasizing that well, let me look over here in the chat. Nancy's saying that she now needs a jelly donut and that she's been craving donuts lately. And Angel saying hers is the favorite is the Krispy Kreme, the plain glaze, probably hot and fresh as soon as they've made it. And Anna's asking if this is the doctor that did the sedative treatment. Exactly, Anna. This is the coma guy, the guy that put Elvis in the coma for a while and then stuck him with a bunch of hypodermic needles. Said it was acupuncture, but filled him full of something, I don't remember what, but it caused Elvis a bunch of issues. And then Emma saying that she loves those Krispy Kreme donuts as well when she was able to eat them. And Terry's talking about egg custard tarts, which I believe is a British kind of thing because we don't really do tarts or custard, I don't think, here in the United States. They used to do like an egg cream soda, and they don't do that anymore either. So I don't know if we've just moved away from eggs here, or if, and I don't think they were ever big on tarts here, so I'm not sure why that is either. But a tart always sounds good, right? Like just the sound of the word is a good sound. And Nancy's saying that she's never heard of the egg custard tart. Who is the person behind this article, behind this Las Vegas article? Just some journalists. Let's see, I probably have it here. Herald Hyman is the name of the journalist. So just a guy that's pulled together a bunch of stuff. But because they're in Vegas, he's actually talked to Ghanem, which is the kind of the highlight of the story. And then Emma's talking about the beauty and deliciousness of the donuts. And then an egg cream soda, interesting. Yeah, I think it was like from the 50s. They used to do that a lot. So let's take a look at what Dr. Ghanem says here. But the article first emphasizes that both Dr. Francisco and Dr. Nicopoulos, who are in Memphis and were there for the autopsy, they both say no evidence of any illegal drug use. And that's a quote, no evidence of any illegal drug use. And that rumors have persisted for more than a year in Las Vegas that Presley was a heavy user of cocaine, but the rumors were never confirmed. So why they need to stick that in, I'm not really sure, because they did just say no evidence of any illegal drug use. But they want you to know that people still think that he did, even if the medical community says it's not true. The journalists still want to get it in there. At least that's my take on it. And again, this is a great time for me to tell everybody that this is an entertainment channel. Everything I say is for entertainment purposes only. I don't have any special knowledge about Elvis. I'm not an expert. I'm not qualified in any way to say any of the things that I do. I just say them. So if you guys want to say stuff and put it in the comments and put it in the chat, all of it is good as long as there's no vulgarity, no profanity. Everybody's opinion is welcome. Feel free to put it out there. And while you're at it, let's give me some likes. If you like what we've gone over today, if you like the series, if you like the channel, it needs your likes. It needs subscriptions. We're very, very close to 500 people. We're like 3 or 4 away, and we could just get there. And I know there's a lot of people watching, even at this moment, who are not subscribed, and that are not chatting and are just enjoying the broadcast. And if you're one of them and you haven't subscribed, please do, because we need your subscription so that the channel can get these stories out to more Elvis lovers, because these stories are real, they're true. This is the best defense of Elvis of any kind, is for all the truth to be out there so that we can see it openly and make decisions for ourselves. And share me with everyone you know that loves Elvis, because I think they would love to see these stories too. And now back from the commercial of the only sponsor of this channel, who is Hillbilly Cat History. And that's us, Hillbilly Cat History. And all of my wonderful supporters who show up here every day and say such wonderful things in the comments, and we all learn together. Hi, Carolyn. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you being here. And let's get back to what Dr. Ghanem has said. Dr. Elias Ghanem, Presley's Las Vegas physician, who was also a personal friend, expressed extreme surprise when told of the entertainer's death from heart failure. Quote, "Why, he was in perfect health. I personally gave him a physical examination for insurance reasons only recently. I can't understand this." That's the quote from Dr. Ghanem. Let's read it again. "Why, he was in perfect health. I personally gave him a physical examination for insurance reasons only recently. I can't understand this." So there are some important pieces of information here. A doctor believed that Elvis was in perfect health, and we've seen that from multiple doctors now. Dr. Nick believed there was something wrong with Elvis. He was working with Elvis to try to fix it. Dr. Ghanem, while he was prescribing drugs and doing things for Elvis, believes Elvis was in perfect health. Something's not right about that. You know, if you put Elvis in a coma to lose weight and you stick him with hypodermic needles, which we don't know yet within the timeline, we haven't seen that, but those of us from outside the timeline, we do know that. Was that imperfect health? I don't know. It seems odd. And then he says, "I personally gave him a physical examination for insurance reasons." So this is really important, and it connects directly to the will. Okay, people talk a lot about the will, and they believe like there's this one will, and maybe there was two or three. There were dozens and dozens and dozens of wills that had to be completed and turned in every time they did these insurance reasons things. This insurance was about insuring the people who were putting up the money for the concerts, the people who put the money up for the movies, stuff like that. And a lot of those insurance policies would require a will in place. Now, it didn't have to be a perfect will. It just had to be a will, so that there wouldn't be any contesting of the estates or anything afterwards that would cause more confusion within the insurance payoffs. Right? So that was just part of the deal when you're a leading man and you're the guy that's giving the concerts. So when you see all this controversy over why wasn't Billy in a will, or why wasn't this person in a will, Elvis was filing these wills all the time with no expectation he was going to pass away. So they were like a very short form, because you didn't want to file this really large, long document that showed who you were going to give everything to this insurance company, where it might become loose at some time. As we can see, paperwork that was connected to Elvis got sold and made it onto auction markets. And it didn't start doing that the day Elvis died. You know, things that had Elvis's name on it were disappearing from places where they were kept long before. So if you put your personal thoughts and wishes out there into the hands of someone you maybe couldn't trust that well because it was a corporation, that could end up in the press, cause you all kinds of problems. And just looking through the chat here, and yes, Carolyn, I know you were over in Memphis, so maybe you could, if you'd want, put into the chat what your favorite place in Memphis was that you got to visit while you were there. I'd be very interested to know. But back to this article. Let's see what else we can learn from it. Ghanem says, I can't understand this. So again, the medical community did not understand that Elvis was sick, but once they did the autopsy, it was very, very clear from the state of his organs that he was. And again, we haven't seen that in the timeline yet, but it's coming. Ghanem canceled all his late afternoon appointments at his office on Joe W. Brown Drive in the shadow of the Hilton Hotel and flew to Memphis for a first-hand review of events. So it's very difficult to get to Memphis at this point in time, but Ghanem swings it and he makes it there. So he's in Memphis for this funeral period. And Terry's saying that, guys, he's doing a live stream tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. BST time. Shout out to Elvis Channels on the live stream. Thank you so much, Terry, for letting us know. Hopefully a lot of people can join that. Is BST EST, or is that a British time? I've already got a question here. EST at Terry from Angel. And Emma's hoping to join. And Carolyn's favorite place was Graceland. I'm actually somewhat surprised at that, because a lot of people feel a little disappointed that they get rushed through so quickly, but you might have had a great tour. And I'm sure you got to spend some time in the meditation garden, so very happy to hear that. And you got to stand in the foyer where we've been telling the stories about what's been happening there on August 16th. And did you think at all about how it looked differently and it was red instead of being the blue that you see today, the blue and the white? But back to this story. The Las Vegas doctor last year was a recipient of Presley's well-known generosity after treating the entertainer for pneumonia. Now, I don't think we've heard that Elvis had pneumonia before, and that's kind of significant, right? I mean, that puts a lot of stress on your body. Pneumonia is a big thing, even if it's walking pneumonia. I've had walking pneumonia. It really takes it out of you. And if you've already got other things that are going on, that kills a lot of people. Pneumonia does. So, did not know that. Ghanem was gifted with a $42,000 Stutz racing car and a $16,000 Mercedes sedan. So to put that in perspective, wait a second. Carolyn says, Matt, I did the VIP. I was in there for a while. Wow. I've never done the VIP. So hopefully, Carolyn, in the next, because we're getting very, very close to the end of this one, but in our next live, hopefully you come in and keep putting in the chat all the great things that you did, and we could talk about them a little bit. And Carolyn saying that she's still on cloud nine, absolutely loved it there, felt Elvis's presence, a peace. So it was definitely worth going. That's good to hear. I think you stayed at the guest house too, right? And so I've heard some bad things about the guest house, but did you have a good experience? And then Nancy's saying, yeah, he had pneumonia. It's in Kathy's book. Of course, the Colonel made him work when you see him. I think it's 72 when he did that interview. He was coughing and he was joking. He was sick. But this is saying this was in 1976, Nancy. So maybe he had it a couple of times. I know that once you've had it, you're more susceptible to get it. And this might be another one of those things that people thought he was lying about or using as an excuse. Because he would say, they would say the things like the twisted colon and people would kind of laugh it off. And turns out, I mean, it wasn't just twisted. There was some major issues. And Carol, let's give the guest house high rating here, high stars. And to get back to this article, so, and to put this in perspective of what the gifts were that Ghanem was given, Dr. Nick got a used Mercedes sedan, the one that Elvis was done with, but it was a really nice one that was gold. And I believe that's the one he drove on August 16th to Graceland with the blue light on top of it. Ghanem got a Stutz. I mean, that's Elvis's favorite car, and Ghanem got a Stutz. and a Mercedes sedan. So, this is one of the things that people point to and say that this is evidence that Elvis was using Ghanem as a pill factory, or that Ghanem was using Elvis, had him addicted to stuff and was pumping him full in supplying that, and therefore it led to this relationship where he's getting a Stutz and a Mercedes sedan. We're not there yet. We don't know the truth on this. That's why we're bringing it out in this article, so that we can start to get an idea of who Dr. Ghanem is. And then Nancy's saying that maybe he had pneumonia a couple of times because it's scary once you get it and get it again. And that's the scary part. Right. And then Emma's saying that she had it and was given 72 hours when she had it out of 3 of us in intensive care, and she was the only one to make it. So, yeah, pneumonia is really serious. Now, I had walking pneumonia, and they always tell you the same thing when you have one more day and we put you in the hospital. So I don't know how close I really was to getting into the hospital, but once you've had it once, apparently your lungs are always very susceptible to it. At least that's what I was told. Ghanem's claim that Presley's health was good contradicted other reports, which alleged fame and wealth had taken its physical toll long before the singing idol's death Tuesday at the age of 42. Noticeably overweight during the last few years, Presley was plagued with problems of hypertension and an enlarged colon. So this is interesting too. Here it's hypertension and enlarged colon, but in other places it's twisted colon. Right? So we've seen both of those. Now, the truth is it is enlarged, but how did they determine that it was enlarged, and how did it get into this paper, and how did Ghanem not know that? Elvis was admitted 5 times in the past 4 years for treatment at Baptist Hospital. In Las Vegas, Elvis cut his appearances at the Hilton from 8 times a year to twice a year. And in 1976 departed from the 2 shows a night tradition to only doing 1 show. So he physically could not keep up the pace that he was at. And that's what we're seeing reflected there. He just couldn't do it. But people were saying he was lazy, that he was addicted to these drugs, and that's why he wasn't doing it. But as we know, based on the autopsy, his pain must have been severe. And it goes on to talk about how he opened the International, and he took over from Barbra Streisand. Well, he was the second show, and that he set the bar basically for where everybody else had to get to. And then it talks about the Frontier Hotel where he performed the first time in Vegas, and people call that a failure. I think we really would have to take a deep look at that to understand whether it was or was not a failure. I don't believe that it was. It just wasn't the success that they wanted it to be, which doesn't make it a failure. They do talk about the name Hillbilly Cat in here, which I appreciate. Because not a lot of historical things give a nod to the Hillbilly Cat, which comes directly from early marketing for Elvis. He was known as the Hillbilly Cat, and that's where the name for the channel comes from, Hillbilly Cat History, which kind of indicates that we focus a lot on early Elvis history, although in this case, we're right at the end, right? So we're doing the entire span. And that's really everything for today. We've reached the end of the hour. I, as always, appreciate all of you coming and joining in the chat and sharing your thoughts, and all of us getting a chance to just be Elvis fans together as we learn a little bit more about whatever issue it is we're talking about that day. In this case, the mystery of August 16th, 1977. And what do we got coming up in the future? Well, we've got more episodes of this series. We've got more episodes of the Contract series, where we're looking at different documents from Elvis. We haven't gotten to we've gotten to a contract, but it was between Vernon and an insurance company. Haven't gotten to a contract between Elvis and anybody yet, but it's coming. Other things that we've got coming, more comic book episodes, because I like comic books. And I didn't get a whole lot of viewers at the first comic book episode, which is all about Wiz Comics, which was the very first appearance of Captain Marvel, also known as Shazam. So if you ever wondered how Shazam got his powers, we show it, and I show you how Elvis would have read that comic book, even if he wasn't able to read the words himself, because he would have been about 5 years old when it got published, and Gladys had read it to him. He would have seen things in it like a young boy working, bringing home money. That was something that would help his mama. Now, then he saw that the young boy had no family, and he had a lot of family. So that must have made him sad about that young boy. And then he saw that the boy looked exactly the opposite of him. He had blonde hair, this boy had dark hair. He had blue eyes, this boy had dark eyes. But he was like his alter ego. And it's, in later years, Elvis has the dark hair, and we often see him with dark eyes, even though they were blue. We also see that the young boy gets a chance to prove himself, just like Elvis did with Sam Phillips. And then we get to see that the man that he proved himself kept his word, just like Sam Phillips did with Elvis. So I thought it was a great episode about comics. Got very few people watching it. So if you're new to the channel, you might enjoy that particular look. I am going to be doing more of those. They won't all be about superheroes, because there was a lot of comics available at the time. And we're even going to see some comics that Elvis was in, because they actually put Elvis in the comics in the late 50s. So those are all stuff that's going to come up sooner or later in the series. Again, I appreciate all of you for being here. Have a wonderful day. And until I see you guys again, like I always say, you keep on taking care of business.